Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are when you see this video. Thank you for joining me, Dorothea, through an Orthodox Christian lens. It is December 4th, 2025. We are in, by the way, as everyone knows who's Orthodox, we are since November 15th in the Nativity fast season. And as some in the West say, the Advent season. So I thought it was fitting to share this strange article that you saw in the title of this video. So I'm going to discuss that. Faceless nativity scene displayed in Brussels. As you can see the picture here, it's kind of, well, there's a part of me that finds it kind of disturbing and creepy. Because what it reminds me of when I look at the faces there, that there are no faces, but it reminds me of a show from the 1970s called The Bionic Woman that I used to watch. And in this one episode of The Bionic Woman, when I was a child, I saw it. And it was a two-part episode. It was called Fembots. And it was these female robots that were created and actually copied from real women in The Bionic Woman, Lindsay Wagner's character, Jamie Summers, women that she knew or did not know, but most of them she did. Kind of creepy, and what happened is that sometimes their faces would be ripped off, their robotic faces, that they looked at it like a real person, but they weren't. But you'd rip it off, somebody would rip off their face, and there would be like the sounds of, computer stuff going on in the background, and they would have like wires and, plugs in the face. There's just face full of like mechanical stuff, except for the two eyeballs, like golf ball looking eyeballs set in there. It's just kind of gross and creepy, but for some reason, I hope you guys got that. You don't think I'm nuts, but maybe you get a kick out of that. But that's what I was thinking when I saw this picture of the faceless Theotokos and Saint Joseph, and I don't even know, baby Jesus. It just looked like there was cloth of nothing, just a bundle of cloth. But in any case, let me get back to the terrible. Okay, sorry, it's me and my weird ideas. But anyway, let me go on. The installation at Grand Place, made from recycled fabrics with faceless saints, has sparked debates about the boundaries of inclusivity and respect for Christian traditions. At the end of November 2025, a Christmas nativity scene with faceless figures of the Mother of God and Joseph was installed at the Grand Place in Brussels. The unusual installation, conceived as inclusive, quote unquote, attracted wide attention and sparked criticism in European media. The work, titled The Cloths of the Nativity, okay, I guess that's because they used the fabrics and everything. If you look at it from an artistic point of view, created by Brussels designer Victoria Maria Geyer, is made from recycled fabrics and features translucent silhouettes without faces. I'm not sure why you would use recycled fabrics when you're dealing with saints. I know this may sound strange, and maybe people don't agree with me, but I mean, wouldn't you want to be using fabrics that are a lot more meaningful for, organic fabrics that are beautiful and of good quality? I mean, that's just came to my mind. I'm sure you all have your own ideas. Without faces. The faces are replaced by a mosaic of beige-brown fabric fragments. According to the authors, the idea was to attempt to provide an inclusive mix of all skin tones and create a maximally universal image. I don't know why they always have to do this inclusive thing. Christ came and he died for everybody, every human in the world who's ever been born, who's ever died, etc. He died for every single human being that was created and will be created until his second coming. I find that pretty inclusive. The installation provoked a stark reaction in Belgium and France. Commentators accused the creators of distorting Christian heritage and replacing the traditional nativity scene with a modernist provocation. The leader of the French-speaking right, Jorge Louis Bochez, called the composition offensive and an indecency and an insult to our tradition, and the faceless figures zombies. Okay, well, maybe it's the same kind of thing where I was getting the idea of the fembots, but I shouldn't be laughing, but because the fembots was so ridiculous. But on social media, many users also expressed outrage. Some called the nativity scene so simple it's offensive, others so ugly it's provocative. There were also claims that the faces were removed so as not to offend Muslims. Well, Muslims are not going to... Why would Muslims be offended by the faces? First off, that they have the nativity out all the time. And just they decided this time not to have faces... so not to offend Muslims. And by the way, Muslims respect. They call Jesus a prophet, and they respect the Virgin Mary. Anyway, as well as accusations of imposing woke ideology. Okay. Amid the criticism, the mayor of Brussels stated that the project was agreed upon with local church representatives. Okay, so let's go in. I'm just going to share, like I said, I told you about my feelings on the facelessness, but I will get into more about this in a minute because there's another article on this, actually right from the Brussels Times, that I want to get into in a few paragraphs in this. A provocation without purpose. Brussels split over faceless nativity scene in Grand Place. Okay, so there it is again. The new nativity scene in the Grand Place has stirred controversy since its installation, with opinion divided over the unusual design of the figurines. The backlash intensified over the weekend after the baby Jesus figurine was decapitated and its head stolen from the display. Well, that is a lot more offensive than the faceless cloth design here, in my opinion. The city subsequently introduced additional security measures to protect the installation. This is not the first time that the Grand Place nativity scene has been a target for vandals. In 2017, the entire figurine of the baby Jesus disappeared. I remember that, actually, and was never recovered. In 2014, the head of the Christ child was removed by activists during the political protests. In 2015, 3 people aged 20, 21, and 24 vandalized the nativity scene overnight. Okay, so who are these activists? Are they Satanists? Are they atheists? Are they, even atheists don't really care about, whether that's out or not. I mean, I'm telling you, it's doubtful. So maybe they're Satanists or something. I don't know. This year, the heated polemics surrounding the nativity scene has really got people in the city talking. Pardon me. To find out what all the fuss is about, we went to the Grand Place to see the installation for ourselves and talk to some of the people involved in its creation. People need to see themselves in it. Okay. Across the cobblestone of the Grand Place, crowds gather by the minute to take a look at this year's nativity scene. Instead of the classic wooden carved figures with painted expressions, they are met with a new depiction of the Holy Family, fabric silhouettes and faces made of multicolored cloth. A German-born designer was hired by the city to create the installation, Victoria Maria Geyer, who is based in Brussels and is a practicing Catholic. says she designed it, quote unquote, in 360 degrees so everyone could view it from every angle. Okay. She stands by the choice, saying the figures are deliberately, quote, deliberately without features so anyone can see themselves in them, end quote. Okay, that part I just don't understand. And like I said, there's a bit of a disturbing feeling I get when I see no face. And I think it has to do with the fact that because these figures are representing Christ, his mother, and Saint Joseph. So Theotokos and Saint Joseph. And I feel like it's a little disrespectful. But anyway, I feel like they should display their faces. But anyway, I know the art can be creative and it's about expression, personal expression the artist puts in. But the nativity scene is about, obviously the birth of our Savior, and this is like the biggest event in human history. Christ entered the world, and he entered the world, and it's never the same after that. And I even saw that when I went to the Natural History Museum down in Denver, or up in Denver, many, many years ago with my family. They even had a timeline of humanity on the wall at that time. And right in the middle there, it showed the birth of Christ. Even the historians there were saying that is a huge time in history. It's an event that changed humanity forever, which is true. I just found it interesting to find it in a museum, scientific type of museum. So I think that is why it's so important, because what it represents is that. I mean, it's not like the worst thing I've ever seen, but it's just what I'm seeing on this. Let me go on and read a little bit more. Okay, so Christine, a nursery school teacher on a school excursion with her pupils, thinks that the idea could have worked, but feels it is misplaced. I think the concept could have been interesting, but I don't know if it makes much sense for the story of Christmas. As an artwork, it could be nice, but maybe in a museum rather than a public square. Okay. Yeah. Sophie from Mons was seeing the set for the first time. If the idea is to include everyone, the message is not clear at all. They could have shown different skin tones, but with pieces of fabric, nobody understands unless someone explains it, she told the Brussels Times. Yeah, that makes sense. For Sophie and her friends, the faceless figures stripped the scene of emotion. Now, this is a key point right here, in my opinion. Yes, it really hit home for me here. It dehumanizes it. Yes, that is an excellent way to put it. One of them had said, the old set told a story anyone could connect, Christian or not. Here, we don't feel anything. Again, that is key. I think that's why Faceless is so important here, because there is no expression from the saints, the Virgin Mary and Saint Joseph, and seeing the baby's expression. That is how you relate to people. That's how you can feel things for the Mother of God and for Saint Joseph and all that. That is the key. There's no expression, so there's no emotion. So there's a harder way. It's very hard to connect with the people looking at it. Humans need that. I really believe that. Okay, so let me go back in here. She also complained that there was no sign explaining the artistic choice. If you need a long explanation for people to understand the nativity scene, then maybe it does not work. Yeah. Now this priest, he told the Brussels Times that he sees no harm in the depiction. It is still a nativity, he said. The meaning is there. It is beautiful, profound, simple, but people need to see themselves in it. How are we going to see ourselves in a emotionless, faceless, expressionless peace. I mean, maybe it's just moving with the clothes. I don't know. I'm just, I went to college. I took humanity courses, and I understand all the different art mediums and all that, art media and how it all works. And it's, that's great, creativity. But, look, even the animals have eyes and a face. Even the animals. I just saw that. So the animals have their faces and expression, but the saints don't, and the Christ child, the Savior of the world, of us, doesn't. Does that make sense to you? Okay, let me go on. Okay, I think that's all I needed to say on that, actually. I don't want to get into all the costs and the political arguing back and forth on, this and that and this and that. No, let's stick with I want to stick with the artistic view on that and so forth. And then, of course, what happened to the poor baby Jesus in these past... I mean, obviously, I would say there was Satanists involved on decapitating this. And, they don't... Obviously, they didn't like the representation. These people, they had to have been people who, obviously had a real visceral hatred for Christ and his birth, and the whole because that's what it is. It's representation. It's a symbol of Christ's birth, incarnation, the miracle of Christmas. That's how I see it. So I had a lot of things that I made comments on, that I jotted down, my notes and all this. And I think, the expression, no expression, that is what really does it to me. That's the problem. Because really, actually, in art, as we say, it's creativity, it's expression. Yes. So with art, you would have an expression. You would show the expressions, as we've seen in art. It always has emotion and expression. That's what art is. It brings that out so that you can feel the piece that you're looking at, right? So, and then this concept, I don't understand this concept of seeing ourselves in these faceless figures. I don't get that. And as I said, I get that it's still the Nativity, but I think, as I just said, it could have been better. I mean, I like the cloths and everything. I think they should have used organic cloths or something that's really nice, and that's just my opinion. But I just think that I don't know about going overboard with this inclusive, because if you wanted it to be inclusive, expressions, faces on there wouldn't have been bad to do. Then I started thinking, well, maybe they watered it down for this year because of the vandalism the past few times, and the kidnapping of the Christ child and decapitating him. Lord have mercy. So perhaps they thought, well, if we don't have any faces, then maybe they don't have any response to it, no expression. I don't know. What are your thoughts on this? I would love to hear them. Is it much ado about nothing? Is it, it's just a simple display? Or is there more to it? Is there, with the symbolism, this is about Christ's birth, blah, 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 and what it all means. What are your thoughts? I would love to hear them. Thanks so much for watching, for following my channel. Really appreciate it.